Hi guys, welcome back to Flora Fun and Food. My name is Lauren and today I'm going to show you how I make wedding memento picture frames using dried flowers from the wedding and resin. So let me show you how I do it. So the first step in making our picture frame is to dry out our flowers. Now I brought home 2 of the arrangements from the rehearsal dinner that had a lot of flowers that I know will dry really well, like these sunballs and these sea hollies. They just in the past have done really well drying, keeping their color, keeping their shape, and we're going to try a few new ones that I've never done before, but I think it'll all work out really well. So what I have here in this container is silica, which is like the crystals in those little packets when you buy something. It's just to keep the moisture out. This is actually made for like floral things. It's color changing, but I think I've used it so many times that it's just a little confused. So it used to be like a clearish orange, and then it would turn kind of a green color when it was still drying. Now it's all still kind of green because I've just reused it over and over. So luckily it is reusable. So we're just gonna go ahead and get to snipping. We don't need a ton of stem because these are gonna fit in a very small kind of picture frame groove. And so I'm gonna dry them probably as a whole flower, and then if I need to, I'll take petals and stuff off later. So I'm gonna do the sunballs first because they are super fun. So they're these just little yellow puff balls. And I'm just gonna lay them on the table here and I'll show you kind of how I arrange my flowers in with my silica. I grabbed this one from a vase at the wedding because I really liked the texture of the leaves. So we're gonna dry out a couple of those. And I'm also gonna pull the flowers off of it because they'll just be a pretty kind of white petal. So now I'm just kind of going in and snipping anything that still looks nice. It's been about a week since I've had these flowers, and many of them are still completely fine. Some of them have dyed. Roses really don't last that long, so as you can see, kind of all the roses look a little worse for wear. But we may grab some petals of those in just a little bit just to see if we can do anything with them. There's a really pretty anemone that has seen a better day. These Queen Anne's lace will be really pretty if I can pull off these individual ones because they're nice and small and dainty, and they will work perfectly in the picture frame. I really like this smaller foliage because I can pull the leaves off or even use the twigs and stuff itself. Ooh, this one's kind of flaking apart, but that's a really cool one. I'm not sure what that is. It kind of looks like Queen Anne's lace or yarrow or I don't know, something. I don't think a calla lily will dry well, but we'll try it. It's definitely not going to fit in the picture frame, so we'll just kind of have to see how it goes. I'm going to pull off some rose leaves. I see some small ones down here that would be good. Some little ones just so that I know that they'll fit in the picture frame. Well, hell, apparently I wasn't recording, so that really stinks. But what I did was I put a base layer of this Silica Crystals down at the bottom. Then I laid kind of the sturdier bits, so like the sea holly, the sunballs, the leaf branches, anything that was, you know, not gonna get crushed. I put that in a single layer. Then I poured a little more silica on top. And now I'm laying all of the more delicate things on top. The roses I'm putting face up so that silica beads can get all inside the crevices. I'm not sure how well these lilies are going to do, but we'll try it. The daintier ones, like the Queen Anne's lace, I did most of them upside down so that they have less of a risk of getting crushed. This one though is already falling apart, and I'm afraid if I do it upside down, it's just gonna totally disintegrate. So we'll just kind of keep it like that on the side. So now that we have everything kind of layered up, we're gonna finish pouring the rest of our silica gel, or crystals, they're not gel, on top. Like I said, we're getting inside those roses. You really want to coat and cover absolutely every element because this will help dry out every last drop of moisture, and that's what we want for our dried flower resin picture frame. If you have too much liquid, your resin is going to not work correctly. So I made a mess here, but luckily we can just scoop it off and pour it right back in. Kind of do that. Put Put some more in that white rose. The white roses will turn brown, but that's okay. We'll still have some pretty petals. All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna seal it with our lid and leave it for a couple of days, and then they should be nice and dried out. Okay, it has been 5 days since I put our fresh flowers into our silica crystals to dry out. So now it's time to prep our mold and our epoxy and get our picture frame going. So some materials I use Total Boat resin. It just seems to be the best one I've used so far. It is a little pricey, but it dries really hard and clear. I don't have a huge issue with bubbles. It would be better if I had like a pressurized canister or if I used heat or something like that, but it's pretty low maintenance if you're not going for, you know, like 100% no bubbles. Then I've got my picture frame mold here from Michaels. They also sell certain ones on Amazon. The one from Michaels does come with the picture frame backing but no glass. It only comes with one, so what I like to do is just order more backings, or you can go to the store and just get like a 4x6 frame, and it will, you know, give you the glass and the backing. Then I have this silicone spray that just helps release the resin from my silicone mold and just kind of extend the life of my silicone mold. This is actually my second one because I put my other one under a heat lamp to hopefully dry it faster, and it warped it. So this is my brand new, not warped one. I also have just wooden skewers to use as stirring sticks, and then I have 2 different sizes of plastic measuring containers. So we're going to get our flowers out first and get them into our picture frame how we want them, and then we will mix up and pour the resin. So the first step is to just get all of the flowers and leaves out of our silica and get them into a container on their own. I like to shake off as much silica as I can because I don't want it in my mold, obviously, and it will show up in the resin if you don't get it all out. The roses are a little trickier because it's in all of those crevices. So I just kind of like to tap it gently, and it gets most of it out. Certain petals by themselves will fall off. They are still completely usable, so don't get rid of them. They actually are a lot easier to stick single petals in than, you know, a whole flower. Our white one actually turned out pretty white instead of brown, so that's pretty exciting. Oh, here's another one. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, it's really nice and white too. Cool. And I'm just hitting the top of my hand instead of the flower itself. It just helps me get the silica out without, you know, smacking the leaves off of the stem. But again, you'll still lose some petals, just like this one. So this is the lily that we dried, and it is definitely not dry. It's still very pliable and feels like it has a lot of moisture in it. So I am not gonna put this in our picture frame, but I am gonna stick it back in the silica later to see if it'll dry out even more, just because I'm curious, because I've never done this type of flower before. So now I'm just gonna kind of gently dig my fingers down into the silica and just pull up everything, kind of just give it a little shake, and just kind of testing different ones to make sure they actually are dry. If you put anything that's not dry in your resin, so if there's moisture or water in it, your resin is going to bubble. It's not going to cure. It'll stay kind of like, not pliable, but it'll be kind of like bendable, and it should be very rigid. So you do want to make sure that whatever you are putting in there is totally dry. Now that I have a dehydrator, I really want to try dehydrating some things like fruit and that kind of stuff to be able to, you know, cast them in resin, but I just haven't done that yet, but I think it'd be a fun little activity. And I'm just trying to keep like things with like things just so I know what I've got. And I also put them in pretty much like things with like things, so everything's together, and it just makes it easier for me to gauge what I have, how much of something I have. And it doesn't matter if I get a little bit of silica in there, it'll all be fine. I probably should have done this in 2 stages. It just dries a lot better if you have single layers of flowers or leaves or whatever in between layers of silica. But these all fit and most of them dried. The wetter ones just need more time. So that's just kind of why I'm checking these as I go. So now that I don't see anything kind of just right on the surface, I like to give it a little shake, and it just starts to reveal what's in the next layer. So now that I've gotten pretty much everything I could feel, I like to kind of sift through it with my fingers, getting all the way to the bottom and just kind of letting it fall through my fingertips to bring anything that I've missed up to the surface. There we go. And I don't worry about getting every little teeny tiny scrap, but I do want the big pieces. All right, so I definitely have some pieces that did not dry out fully, and so I'm gonna put them back. And I'm really sad because I wanted these cute little tail looking ones. I'm not sure what they are, but they're really cute. So I've split them apart from each other just to get them spread out better. And I'm gonna cover those like that. And then all of these, we're gonna try and spread out better. We're gonna fill the lily this time and tuck it in. Get these kind of shifted to the bottom here. Okay, so we'll just leave these for another few days. But I have plenty to work with from what I got out. Okay, we're gonna start by spraying our mold with our silicone release spray. Just letting that kind of dry. You always want to make sure that you start with a clean mold as well. You can scrub these with soap and water, but make sure it is completely dry before you spray your silicone spray in. And now the fun part is arranging everything where you want it to go. So I was worried that these sun balls were going to be too big, and they definitely are, so we're going to have to figure out what to do with them. I may have to cut them in half, but let's go ahead and get started. I love this little sea holly, and I'm going to just nuzzle it in to a corner. I like to work from the corners inward so that I make sure I have like pretty focal points at each corner. So I'm adding some purple to that one. We'll do some cute daisies in this corner. Ooh, that one does not feel dry. So if I come across any that just don't feel like they are dry enough, like this one, it's very floppy still, I'm not going to use it. Get some yellow bunches in the corner here. I'll probably do a big one at the bottom and a big one at the top. Definitely need some more sea hollies. So we'll stick them just kind of opposite sides just to kind of even it out. Then we'll fill in here and there with some greenery. So like there's some rosemary. I just like to kind of play around with the colors and make sure I get some of everything in there. And then I'm going to pull off these really delicate white flowers and just kind of scatter them wherever it needs some fun little pops. And I'm just kind of bordering it with these yellow sprigs because it needs more yellow. I'm going to squeeze in some yellow petals just for like a pretty floating effect. I found some leaves. We're going to add some pretty greenery as kind of in the background. Getting some of the different textures of leaves. So these are more spiky. And a lot of these smaller petals that are just kind of free floating will move around once we pour our resin. They won't stay in place. So you have to kind of mess with them a little bit once you get the resin put in. But that's what the wooden little skewers are for. We are going to take the stem off of our little sun ball here. And I'm going to try and cut it. I guess I could cut it in half like this. We'll try one like this. Again, I'm filling this pretty full because, again, they will move around. So now what I'm doing is I'm just looking around for any gaps and filling it in with leaves or small little flower buds and just kind of trying to fill the empty space so that it doesn't have, you know, a big clear spot and draws your eye kind of funny. So here's kind of what we're working with. This is the general layout. I think I have it full enough. If I see holes as I fill it with resin, I will fill them in. So let's get our resin mixed up and ready to go. Okay, so I have these plastic measuring cups that have measurements on the side in, I believe, fluid ounces and cc's. So this resin requires a 3-to-1 ratio for mixing. So 3 parts of the resin and 1 part of the hardener. And you do need to really accurately measure this. If you don't have enough hardener, it's not gonna cure and it's gonna be sticky. If you have too much hardener, it could crack and break. So you really wanna make sure that you take your time on this step and do it correctly. You wanna mix it for 2 or 3 minutes after you pour it. So I like to pour inside of my work area, which is a cardboard box, because this stuff is messy and it will not come off very easily of anything. I'm gonna pour, see, I already spilled 300 cc's of the resin. Okay, and then I'm gonna pour 100 cc's of the hardener. And then I'm gonna sit here and mix this thoroughly. I'm gonna use 2 sticks just to kind of almost whisk it. You want to mix this until you cannot tell that there are any swirls or streaks or anything like that. It's okay if it gets bubbles in it, but you're gonna mix this until it is all a solidly clear mixture here. Solution, I guess it would be. So I'm gonna do this for 2 or 3 minutes. And I'll be back. I'm also gonna set my picture frame inside the work area. So we're gonna just carefully kind of crease our container here, and I cracked a little bit. So I make a little spout by creasing it, and then we're gonna just carefully pour our resin over all of our stuff. I like to just pour it slowly across everything, just to make sure everything gets coated, and then it fills gradually as you keep going, and it'll even out on its own. It's okay if you get some on the outside. We'll wipe that up before we let it harden. So it starts to kind of overflow a little bit. I probably mixed up way too much resin because I haven't done this for a while and I forgot how little resin this picture frame takes. So that's kind of a bummer because the stuff's not cheap and you don't want to waste it. But we'll just keep pouring, making sure it is filled to the top. And then I just take my skewers and just kind of settle everything. I push it back under the resin if it has floated up. I pop bubbles with it if they are sitting on the surface. I just kind of shift everything to make sure all the space is filled, pushing down any stems sticking up. I let it sit for just a minute because some of the air pockets are still bubbling up from underneath everything. It definitely is going to need a little bit more resin. Just as I was pushing things down, I could tell it was making room. So I just kind of go very slowly around the edge again. Again, just pushing everything back into place with my wooden skewer. Now, if you get any along the outside, you can get a Q-tip and just kind of wipe it off. I'm wiping it off with my finger. I wouldn't recommend it, but I already got some on me, so I'm going to wash my hands here in a minute anyway. And now we are just going to let it sit and harden on its own. It will take at least 24 hours. I don't like to break the mold until I know that it is 100% hardened. Otherwise, you're going to have a bendy, sticky picture frame. So it's as simple as that. So I will leave this alone. My house I keep really cold. I keep it at like 68 degrees. And so mine typically take a little longer to cure. So if you keep your house at, like a normal person's 72 or something, it will cure better. I don't recommend putting this under a heat lamp though, because like I said, I warped my previous frame. and the other one's cured just fine without it. I was just trying to speed up the process because I'm an impatient person. Okay, so we're just gonna leave that alone, and I'll see you back when it has cured. Okay, it has been 48 hours since we poured our resin. You can see that the stuff in the mixing cup is completely solid. I can't squeeze it. So I kind of tested this throughout the day yesterday, and it was still slightly pliable, but now I can't bend it. I can't do anything. It's very, very solid. It is not sticky or tacky to the touch. So it's time to take this out of the mold, my favorite part. So I just start by peeling away the outer edge like this, and then pulling the inner mold, and then we're just gonna peel it off of the front like that. And here is our gorgeous picture frame. It turned out so cute. Let me show you a better angle. And here is our final result. I think it turned out beautiful. I realized I got this one upside down, but that's okay. It's still kind of a fun texture. You can see the flowers and leaves from all sides. The back has a nice little groove where we will fit our backing. It doesn't have any sort of like mechanism to clamp it in, so what I do is just put a dot of hot glue in each corner after I get the picture in there with the glass, and if you ever need to pop it out, hot glue comes out really easily. So there is our final result. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and head over to my channel to subscribe for more content like this, and I hope to see you guys again very soon. Thanks guys, bye.